organizing committee, and in the name of the organizing committee and Dr. Estela Estapé and all the collaborators, welcome. This is the fourth summit of translational research in health disparity. And as you see in the program, I hope everybody has the program, we celebrate 3 different activities. We have the fourth summit of translational research in health disparity, the fourth multidisciplinary conference in clinical research, and for the first time, the first collaborative endowment research meeting. And the last one is very important for us because it's where we're going to define new collaboration for the 5th summit that we're going to celebrate maybe next year. I want to welcome all the authorities that we have here, but before I say the name, I prefer that they come in. We have people from the Office of the President, we have people from the Chancellor's Office, we have faculty members, and we have scientific that are very interested in the health disparity field. I want to introduce first Dr. Gladys Escalona de Mota, Associate Vice President for Research and Technology at the UPR. If you want to come in. We're going to start with the introduction and welcome remark.
Thank you. Thank you to the organizing committee. My most heartfelt thanks. This has been a big job, good job, and I'm sure it's going to be an excellent conference. It's a pleasure to be here. I represent the central administration of the University of Puerto Rico, and in particular the Vice Presidency for Research and Technology. It's one of the 3 vice presidencies of the central administration. There is an Academic Affairs Vice President, a Students Issues or Student Affairs Vice President, and the Research and Technology Vice President. As you can surmise from the title, we are interested and supporting research and technological innovations at the University of Puerto Rico. And certainly we foster and support collaborations that are one of the reasons and one of the ways in which our researchers can and do excel in research and in innovation. Just to give you an idea about a very short idea, well, you probably know this is a system. University of Puerto Rico is a system that has 12 units. One of the units is the central administration I talked about, and there are 3 graduate institutions, which is this medical sciences campus, the Mayagüez campus, where mostly the engineering and mechanical arts programs are, and the Rio Piedras campus, which is the founding institution of the University of Puerto Rico, and where there are, in general, both science and social sciences, natural sciences, and humanities, in addition to several of the professions. Rio Piedras has the law school and the architecture school of the UPR system, among other graduate programs. Then there are among the other institutions, there are 4-year colleges. 3 of those are becoming also research intensive institutions, but they do not have a graduate programs. That is Calley, Humacao, and Bayamón. And there are a series of what used to be called regional colleges that are 4-year and 2-year colleges that are really pipelines for to bring in students from all around the island into the more advanced either professional or graduate programs at the UPR. So as you see, we are a very diverse institution that started as a education college. So our very beginning was, we were a normal school, okay, 110 years ago. So you can imagine how far and long we have traveled from that early times. But so that means that in the very beginning and in the first few decades, the institution was basically a teaching institution. So we can say that maybe 4 decades ago, a major change occurred in both in the organization and also in the mission, in the vision of the university, and we slowly but surely are becoming, or have become, a research institution. Rio Piedras, the campus was named by Carnegie, the Carnegie Institution, a research intensive university a few years ago. So, and that's the very first classification as research intensive institution that the system has had. So that tells you how far, how long we have traveled. And essentially what I can quote the Vice President of Research and Technology saying is, research is not only nowadays, not only the most important component of the mission of the university, but also the way in which our institution, which is the public university of Puerto Rico, supported mainly by funds from the tax-paying constituents of the island, is contributing, or will be contributing to the development and growth of Puerto Rico, both in the economic sense and in the social sense, etc. So that's a tough job. And I appreciate immensely the job and the contribution that researchers here are providing to the fulfillment of that job. I have just 2 or 3 numbers that I would like to give you to just give you an idea of the transformation that has occurred. For example, the rough count, we have around between 700 and 800 established researchers, and that means researchers that act as student mentors and that have some kind of external support. Okay, between 700 and 800, and of those, 200, nearly 200, are in this campus. Okay, that's the proportion, that more or less. For 2012, we had around 750 to 800 referred publications. By that time, there were around 20,000 citations of the works published by our researchers. And approximately between 25 and 30% of all the research funds that are received by the university are received by researchers in this campus. We are, there's among the many groups that prepare statistics. SIMAGO is one of those, and it has placed the University of Puerto Rico on the 20th position among around 1,500 universities in Latin America and the Caribbean. Okay? And in the 44th position among the 1,700 or so universities in Latin America, Caribbean, and Spanish, and Spain and Portugal, which is Iberoamerica. So it gives you an idea of the position relative to very long established universities in both in Latin America and in Spain and Portugal. So those numbers just give you a brief glimpse of the effort that is being placed in developing a strong research activity and a strong research enterprise at the University of Puerto Rico. We are here to support all the efforts and in any way possible. We can't pay much. There's no money. But that's a common ailment to almost all higher education institutions in the world. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here, and I wish you have an excellent conference and a most rewarding experience at this institution and in Puerto Rico. It doesn't rain every day. Thank you.
It was not supposed to rain today, but it's happening. Well, now we're going to have Dr. Ricardo Gonzalez Mendez. He's the Dean of Academic Affairs of the Medical Sciences Campus, and he's going to bring a greeting for the university, for the Medical Sciences Campus, and on behalf of the Chancellor, the Acting Chancellor, Dr. Edgar Colón Negro.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see many of you again, and then some more. We greeted some of you last night on the celebration of the 10th anniversary of the postdoctoral master's degree. And I greet you again this morning. The sun will shine. On behalf of the Chancellor, Dr. Edgar Colón Negro, welcome to our campus. This is an important activity. This is the fourth activity, the fourth symposium on health disparities held on this campus. And perhaps not known to many of you, we are becoming one of the leaders in the United States in terms of health disparities and the social determinants of health, academically and from an education standpoint. And that's why this research conference is important. Not only do we have our postdoctoral master's degree, and not only do we have an endowment which is focused on health disparities. When we reconceptualized the curriculum on the master's degree and made it a translational research, something I'm very proud to have been a part of, because not only am I currently an acting dean and acting for the chancellor for these days, I'm part of the faculty that originally designed the curriculum of this program and helped redesign it. I've been very honored to be a part of this program from the beginning. So for us, when we built in social determinants of health and health disparities into the program from the beginning. Not only that, the School of Public Health is one of the few in the nation that has started a professional doctorate degree in public health focused strictly on social determinants of health. And this is important because, for example, just last week I was reading a paper on the Journal of Sociology and Culture from some of my old homes, San Francisco State. Not that I was there, I was just next to UCSF when I was a postdoc there. But they just published a paper where they said that socioeconomic status has consequences for maladaptive consumption behavior. But the interesting thing is that they take it not at the individual level, they go one further step. Does the socioeconomic status of the neighborhood you live in have an impact? And what they found out is that if you have a lower socioeconomic status than your neighbors, you will be unhappier. It has consequences for your mental health. You will be more depressed. And so you will do maladaptive consumption. You will be more in debt. You will consume things you do not have or not need just because the influence of your neighborhood impacts it. This morning, even though most of us are passing around the budget crisis of the university, you needed to go 20 pages deep into the paper to see that the National Heart, Lung, Blood Institute published a paper on Hispanics. And it turns out not only do we have a higher rate of chronic illnesses, which are the most expensive and the biggest burden on the healthcare system, but the Puerto Ricans in general have a higher incidence of the chronic illnesses in the United States and in Puerto Rico than the other Hispanic groups. Where does that come from? Is it social? Is it environmental? Is it genetic? Yesterday I met with a graduate student who will be on her committee, and we were talking about looking at some pharmacogenomic instances, and I said to her, have you considered mining the 75 Puerto Rican genomes and the 1,000 genome projects for the markers that we say about admixture, and then try to figure out on the 8 markers that impact diabetes or impact the coagulation problems? We Hispanics are more sensitive to warfarin than other groups. That has been proven on this campus with people from Stanford and UCSF. And so she'll say, no, well, there are 1,000 genomes. There is a cancer genome atlas that has 1,000 genomes for all the major types of cancers, and they want to make it a 10,000 genome project and a 100,000 cancer genome project. Now, in my other identity, I deal with esoteric things such as how do big data supercomputers, because how many of you have ever downloaded, like I did, the table of gene expression of colorectal cancer? And have you ever tried to load on your computer an Excel table that has 22,000 entries for each gene across 480 patients, marked by normal tissue matched with the cancer tissue of the same patient and normal tissue of patients that do not have cancer? And how do we mine that? And then tie it to the work that you guys do, because you are our contact with the people, which is the most important. So I deal with supercomputers and esoteric data mining programs and bizarre statistical tests that we need to do, but you're the guys that have to deal with people. You are the ones that have to talk to them. Not only is your obligation to carry out the research, but it is your obligation to deal with the human being that has a condition. One of the amazing things reported in the paper this morning is that fully 1/3 of the people studied by this major multi-center trial from NIH was that 1/3 of them did not know they had diabetes or hypertension at the time they entered the study. They came in as volunteers to find out, by the way, you didn't know you have diabetes and hypertension. So the research now has an ethical obligation of providing care and advice and dealing with that human being. And that is what we try to do in this program. Take the clinical researchers, train them in the research, but ensuring that they can not only carry out the research, but do the ethical and correct clinical care. And that's why, for me as an individual, for me as a dean, and for the chancellor, both as a researcher, clinician, and chancellor, this program is important. So, enjoy the meeting. It is great I found out yesterday there's a Stanford connection. I still go to the farm, and it's closer than most of you think. It's great to see Dr. Gabriel, whom I met a decade ago when she was just faculty in the program. Today she's the dean at Mayo. And we have people from the United Kingdom. It took me back to the old days when some of my advisors were researchers from the United Kingdom in the radiobiology division at Stanford. So we have national, international participation, both at the level of faculty, guests, and students. And you don't get to see such good people together that often, here or anywhere. So thank you all for being here, and enjoy the meeting. Have a good day.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Now we're going to have Dr. Inés Garcia. Is she here? Oh, hola. Acting Dean of the School of Medicine. And you're going to now listen to reading from the deans because all the collaborations are between both School of Medicine and the School of Health Professions. Welcome, Dr. Garcia.
I like nature. Good morning. It's a privilege for me to be here today. Yesterday we were celebrating all the successful stories from the scholars and the faculty, the mentors that were involved in the 10th anniversary. And for me, when I saw today Dr. Aglasia Escalona Mota, I was thinking, oh my God. I entered the University of Puerto Rico, the Oviedas campus, I'm not going to say the year, but I went to the MBRS program and I requested for an elective in research because someone told me that that was very important if you go in science. And I went, okay, let me go on, make the line, get my elective first. Then she accepted me in her program in the neurobiology lab. We were working with Palintroa, did you know that? Okay. Yeah, it was very interesting. And for me, that was like a milestone. Okay? It's suddenly I realized that, wow, this is very important, the thing about research. Thanks to the MBIS program, I went to the Washington, D.C. to present with different groups of minority groups. And in that meeting, we were the Latinos, us, Hawaiian people, and the African Americans. And that meeting, I was like, wow, they're very different, you know. And you start realizing that things that are important for them is not necessarily what is important for you in your science world. And that is very important to try to understand what is going on your own community, on your own culture or gene group, okay? And today when I was looking at her and seeing her, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I was a very good student, but I hope that that helped me to improve my student performance. And I've been listening Dr. Ricardo Gonzalez, that for me, it's important that we have to keep going and create to the students, not at the medical school level, undergraduate level. You have an even high school and middle school and kindergarten and et cetera, et cetera. Because this is very important for all of us. I do not do, I'm a pediatrician and I do neonatal perinatal medicine. And even though the most important things that maybe are the common topics that diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, we have other issues with health disparities. We have a lot of congenital anomalies. We have a very high rate of prematurity. You know, we have very strong issues in maternal infant medicine in Puerto Rico that we have not been capable to address properly, even though we're trying strongly. And I'm saying this because after I learned from Dr. Garcia Mota, all the things that we have to do undergraduate, as I kept growing, I tried to deal with those things that I was identifying in pediatrics and neonatal perinatal medicine. We work with folic acid for the prevention of neurologic defects with March of Dimes. And I know that Dr. Cordero from Public Health is working strongly with prematurity issues in Puerto Rico. And again, we have to promote strongly that all the students get involved in research, understanding that we are different and we have our own issues, and that we have the capability of trying to understand what is going on to try to improve the health of Puerto Rico. So have fun during the day. I think the next one is Dr. Ruben Garcia. We are not brothers, but we are Garcia.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. And now we have Dr. Ruben Garcia. He's the acting dean of the School of Health Professions, and we want to thank him for letting us know, celebrate this scientific meeting here in the school.
Thank you, Dr. Soto. I hope you have a nice rest last night, and also that you have today a nice breakfast with a nice view in our terrace. I think it's the first time that we use the terrace, Dr. Etape?
Yes.
That's okay? Okay, now I have to do my duty. Good morning to everyone. It is really my honor and pleasure to give all of you a warm and rainy welcome to the School of Health Professions of the Medical Sciences Campus of the University of Puerto Rico. In addition to that, to our new auditorium with a nice view, with state-of-the-art technology equipment, most of them provided by the Title V grant of the Department of Education, United States of America, in which I am a director. And especially to this 4th multidisciplinary conference in clinical research, 4th summit of translational research in health disparities, and the first collaborative endowment meeting, research meeting. Such really a special, important, and excited occasion for all of us. As an interim dean of the School of Health Profession, an academic leader of our institution, a researcher and a official member of the Executive Committee of Hispanic in Research Capability Endowment, HIREC, thanks to all of you for being here in such a great conference with excellent and committed participants, scholars, professors, researchers, leaders, educators from our institution, other institutions in Puerto Rico, other institutions in the United States, and other institutions in South America, Central America, forming an international networking, especially to our first partner and collaborator, Mayo Clinic, primarily represented by our collaborator friend, Dr. Sharon Gabriel, Dean of School of Medicine at Mayo. I've been at Mayo in 1996, but that's another story. All of us from different disciplines, learning, sharing, and networking during this 1.5 day, recognizing the importance of translational research as a tool to reduce health disparities. As I said last time, in the activity of the 10th anniversary of the Postdoctoral Master of Clinical and Translational Research, during the last decade, scholars, researchers, visiting professors and faculty from both of the School of Medicine and School of Health Profession have come together, knocking barriers physically, mentally, and academically, for the development of a variety of proposal, project, collaborative effort between schools, other institutions in Puerto Rico, United States, nationally, internationally, locally, globally, in La Nube, Hispanic, such as the Postdoctoral Master of Clinical Research, Hispanic in Research Capability Endowment, HIREC, and the Puerto Rico Clinical and Translational Research Consortium, PRCTRC. We have a lot of time trying to figure out what that means, but we finally get it. PRCTRC sponsors, organizers, and leaders for this conference. Today, we are really together again. We come together again, and I always ask questions. This is my first question for you. The question is a new collaborative project in the horizon? Let's think about it during your active participation in each of the activities during these days. This is the outcome, a new collaborative effort between all of us. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, in his first inaugural address speech 81 years ago, said, "When there is no vision, the people perish. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." As an active leader during the last decade in some of the above-mentioned collaborative efforts in a variety of roles, and now with honor and privilege as an interim dean, I want to recognize in front of you the leadership of Dr. Estela S. Estapé Garastazú, former dean of our school, professor of the graduate department of the School of Health Professions, and program director and principal investigator of this project, and her teamwork for such a wonderful, excellent job in all of these endeavors. Today, we have an excellent and unique opportunity for sharing, learning, and networking facing to the future. Again, to all of you, to all of us, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Well, now we're going to start our collaboration. I just wanted to say welcome to Dr. Lucy Muñiz, that is the Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs at the Central Administrative Office of the President, and Dr. Walter Silva, that were involved research in our campus. Now we're going to start. We are a little behind of time, but I'm going to deal with that later. As you see, our theme today is translational themes, a window to new approaches and health improvement to eliminate health disparity. We are talking about themes. What that means? It means that the reason that you are here is because we want to organize teams. Teams that start during this session and continue working for new collaborations. The aims of the, let me see where are, here, the aims of the summit and the conference are: share the experience of successful models of translational themes to eliminate health disparity, provide a forum for discussion of innovation for health improvement, and discuss new approaches to impact healthcare and public policy. To obtain the aims, we invite different guest speakers from different parts of the United States. We have people from Mayo Clinic, we have people from Stanford University, we have people from UMass, and we have people from England. Dr. Gay, welcome to Puerto Rico. And we have our partners, people from PRTCRC. I have the same problem of Dr. Garcia with the letters. People from the School of Medicine, University of Ponce, and we have people from Universidad Central del Caribe in Bayamón, other of our School of Medicine. It means that we plan to do a lot. For tomorrow, we're going to have 3 working groups, and I need to tell this now because I need that you define if you want to participate in those collaborative groups. One is going to be preventive intervention in the elderly population, where you're going to have Dr. El Sorellano and Dr. Gale. We're going to have another one of community engagement that would be organized by the Research Institute for Global Health Promotion and Health Education, IPESAC. I'm going to share the group, and we're going to have Dr. Rosal and Dr. Joyce Berry. Berry from Mayo Clinic. And the third one is going to be preventive intervention in pediatric population. That is going to be shared by Dr. Garcia. There is the other director of the other endowment that we, and Dr. Mendoza will be the guest speaker of the group. Let's start now with our program. And it is very important because you see that we're talking about endowment for collaborative effort, first meeting, and we're going to have the endowment approaches toward translational teams to eliminate health disparity, and we're going to have Dr. Celesta Pega Rastasud, that is the PI and director of the HIRE endowment, and we're going to have Dr. Enrique Garcia Rivera, that is the director in the endowment of the School of Medicine. And now, Dr. Celesta Pega, we're going to start.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with all of you here, and I'm going to speak about what is our approach toward translational teams in the endowment. Let me see. We have a very, very small team. This is our translational team. I'm the PI and director, but this is a multiple PI. The other PI is Dr. Clemente Diaz. And we make together the MD PhD team. So I really appreciate that Clemente be there, and then Dr. Lourdes Soto de la Vida, she's over there as our collaborator, co-investigator. And then the project manager, who is Araceli Huertas, is there. She's a graduate from our graduate certificate in clinical research, and we all work together. It's a small translational team. But thanks God we have an endowment of $15 million, which is now I think 18 million or something like that. Unfortunately, we cannot use the millions. The millions are in the central administration. We use the interest. So what we do with those interests is what you're going to see today in working toward translational research and teams. So we have a mission, and the mission starts with expand and sustain, because we have something very strong already. So what we do, we are doing two things. We are involved in expanding the clinical research training. That's our first aim. And the other one is the research infrastructure. We all do this to eliminate health disparities. So what we're working is toward minority health and health disparities, because this endowment is given by the National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities. And we have 3 endowments. We have 45 million. The NIH has entrusted this campus with the first endowment, who I think is the Health Services Research Endowment of the School of Medicine. Then came Augusto Elias in the dental medicine with 15 more. 15, not 50, say it like, I wish it was 15. And then it was ours, which was really written in 2 weekends. And my partner was Walter Frontera, who trusted me in writing the endowment. And when I called the NIH, you always should call the scientific officer. Well, he said, if I were you, I would do it. So we did and got the endowment. So that's how we are here. And there. So how we work these 2 aims really is through the Postdoctoral Master of Science in Clinical and Translational Research. So NIH gave us that money to really make this program sustainable after, if something happens, we don't get the funding, right? So we are there to support this program. And what we're doing is filling gaps. We're filling gaps because the NIH hasn't understand that young faculty is not only 7 years. We're trying to change that. But as you know, they changed again. It was 10 before, and now it's 7. if you're over 7 years after graduation, or you have an assistant professor of 7 years, let me tell you, you're not a young faculty member anymore. So anyway, so we have gaps to fill, and what we are trying to do is this. We have 4 scholars in 2011. We don't have Rodrigo here. Rodrigo, he's a fellow at Stanford, Mendoza. Yes. Rodrigo came from UCC. The UCC was not a partner of this program at that moment. So Rodrigo got this award with the PRC-TRC. We joined together and gave him this award. And now he came the other day and gave this beautiful conference, and we felt so proud. So the other one we have here, it's Ada. Where is Ada? I saw her coming in, yes. Ada is from Ponce. Ponce wasn't a partner of the program either. So we have those 2 direct PRC-TRC scholars. We are very proud of them. So thank you, Ada, for being there. And her mentor is Milagros Rosal, who will be speaking this morning. So we have another successful story. We have Vanessa Sepulveda. She's an MD. She's from the geriatric UPR department, and she was over also 10 years of. These are candidates that are admitted to the program first. They qualify for the program, but don't qualify for NIH scholarships. So the other one is our first success story, who is a PhD in chemistry. We had never had a scholar that was not a health-related profession. So Edgar studied with Esther Torres. Those who know Esther, she didn't know what she was doing, but she was the mentor of the first non-health-related professional. And Edgar Miranda is already completed the degree. So now we have the first one. I think I saw her. Yes, Elaine. We have the first one, phase 1. Phase 1 is really when you get the degree. Phase 2 is when you finish, you can apply for more support, and then you will see what we're doing next. But phase 1, Elaine Kologi, she's also an audiologist. She's more than 7 years graduate, and she works with ASEM. So ASEM, as a partner of the Medical Sciences Campus, we are supporting Elaine. So we really are supporting scholars or candidates that get admitted to our program but don't have NIH funding. So the other thing that we are inventing, we have to work on research infrastructure. So what we are doing, we just created a Phase 3 award. This is very new. It did not exist before. And we are also having a program of visiting professors, who Clemente is the one that helps us with that. And then we have the celebration of summits. As you can see, the main sponsor of this summit is IREC. And anything that doesn't get covered, well, IREC does. And then we work on collaborations, we work on professional development, which is by NIH standards now. The program of the master is career development. After you know something of research, you are undergoing professional development. And we work on publications, because if we don't publish, we perish, right? But we have to publish to get money. And that's why we have Mary Helen Mays. Mary Helen, you're there. Mary Helen is our consultant in PRC-TRC for writing, and she will be taking notes, because we usually write something, right? Yes. So anyway, the Phase 3 award, what is our goal? We're supporting graduates from Phase 2 to work with a younger faculty member who is not a researcher yet, but wants to be a researcher. So we are working this collaboration for translational teams. What we're doing, we invented also, this was Walter's idea. Instead of having an endowed chair, we're going to have visiting endowed chairs. So these visiting endowed chairs will be working with us for at least 2 years with the scholars. So in that way, we are promoting. We have where's Karen? Where's the Karen? Is over there. She's with. You'll see their names again, because the other one. So we have Karen. Karen is a Phase 3 scholar. And now she has a project. She's developing a center for what we all need in Puerto Rico. ¿cómo se llama? Anxiety disorders, right? When you read the news, that's why we have anxiety, who doesn't, right? And fear and anxiety. So anyway, if the tsunami comes, at least we are in the 8th floor, and so we are prepared, right, Gwen? So anyway, she's our first phase 3, and the second one, that's Farah. Farah is our other phase 3, and as you can see, I'm sorry I didn't mention the endowed chair, the visiting endowed chair, Stefan Hoffman. We met him, and we had this activity here in the 8th floor, and he said that he was in the earthquake here, and that he ran for his clothes. So, imprudent me, I asked him if he slept nude. The poor guy is from England, and yes, and he doesn't know Puerto Rican culture, so he almost fainted, but then he said he had a Puerto Rican girlfriend. I said, yes. So anyway, the poor guy, he will love Puerto Rico forever. So Stefan Hoffman is, he's her mentor, poor guy. So Farah, imagine who's Farah's mentor. That's Walter from Terra. He thought by going to over there, where is it, Vanderbilt, he was going to get lost from us, that he cannot do. So he's Farah's endowed chair. And we really, and Valerie, where is Valerie? Did she get in? Okay, good. So, and then Jessica, which I think she's, no, but where's Jessica? She just went out, maybe. She was sitting next to you, Gladys. So we're helping the physical therapy and occupational therapy with the 2 phase 3 awards. And then we do these summits. The goals of the summits in the past has really been, Lourdes has been the leader, and then we have Mauricio here, Mauricio Mayor. And I just saw in Acosta got in. So those two went to that course in health disparities in Washington. They're helping, there are more now. Elsa went also, Valerie went, and who are missing? Huh? And Ada also. So we are working on this course. This course did not exist, so we created a multidisciplinary and multi-institutional course with Joyce. Joyce helping, and she will be working with us. And when we do work together, we try to publish. So as you can see, we had a report of the 3rd summit published, and we have that published in the Clinical and Translational Science Journal, the development of this course, that we're going to do the 2nd publication on the evaluation and implementation. And we also publish the health disparity, the translational research curriculum. So I think that for the final thoughts, I thought, Ruben, you and I were like dreaming the same last night, because I thought that what is the goal for today, right? I think that we have to listen. I don't know if you noticed that I'm always the 3 P's, the 3 E's, the 3 L's, the 3 whatever. The shop of my father in Ponce was called the 3 B's. Bueno, bonito y barato. But this one is the 3 L's. Listen, learn, and look. So anyway, I love that, and we're going to be looking for opportunities to collaborate. How to collaborate in translational teams. So I think, let me see, that's thanks. And then I brought this book, because I told Lourdes that I would be taking notes of what is being said. And then I looked for this book this morning, and it's called, you won't believe it, The Future Me. But even worse, what comes, authoring the second half of your life. Oh my God, if I'm in the second half of my life, and I'm 65, will I live to 130? I thought last night that we took all kind of pictures, because in 10 years, and I told him I miss her, because in 10 years will be 20 years, right, Ricardo? Ricardo dressed like, this is the color of today. If you notice, this is there's a few in this color, so congratulations, you're in. You have vision. Whoever is in this color is in, because this is the color of this year. And this is for February too. So anyway, celebrating my second half life, I'm going to be joining researchers doing stroke, which, you know, for those that don't know, I probably have a biomarker in my hands. I'll be doing lipidomics. And at 65, I'm joining the young faculty doing research. So enjoy, have a great day, and Lourdes is all yours.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We gain 3 minutes. We gain 3 minutes for her presentation. I'm going to keep the time by my iPad, and you're going to listen to oh, yes, not too loud. I just want to welcome Dr. Emma Fernandez from RCMI. Dr. Fernandez, welcome. Now we're going to have Enid Garcia. All the presentations go tied to the aims, and this is very important because each aim needs to have an outcome, and I just want you to follow in this way. Dr. Garcia.
Good morning, saludos a todos. It's really a pleasure for me to be here sharing with you today. I'm gonna be giving the presentation in my Puerto Rican English. So if there's anything that you don't understand, I will be more than happy to answer any questions. First, of course, I would like to welcome you to this meeting. This is the result of an effort to establish and increase the collaboration between the endowments of the School of Medicine or the endowment of the School of Health Professions and endowments of the dental school. We are very excited to participate in this meeting, and I know that you're going to enjoy the high quality of our invited speakers and sharing with colleagues and friends. What I'm going to be doing is providing a brief overview of what are the goals and objectives of the Endowed Health Services Research Center of the University of Puerto Rico School of Medicine. The center was established in 2002 as part of the National Center for Minority Health and Health Disparity Endowment Program to promote diversity in clinical and health services research and to strengthen and enhance the School of Medicine research capacity, resources, and infrastructure to conduct excellence in research. Actually, it was Dr. America Facundo, and I think that she's here with us, the one who wrote this proposal, and we are very grateful for her to her effort. The specific aims of our center are to generate knowledge about health conditions and disparities affecting Puerto Rico, not just Hispanics living in Puerto Rico, but also Puerto Ricans living in the United States. Another important aim of the center is to integrate expertise from different disciplines, including medicine, public health, and social sciences, through collaborative research and alliances. And this is what we have been talking about through this meeting today. What is the vision of the center? The vision of our center is to achieve a better quality of life in Puerto Rico. How we want to do that? Through the elimination of health disparities. And we are working towards that elimination through strengthening our current capacity and resources to conduct high quality research in health services. To accomplish this, we are organizing 3 core areas. One is education and training, the other one is research development and infrastructure, and the community-based initiatives and partnerships. As examples of some of the projects actually going on at the center, within the education and training sections, we have the research interest groups, in which we provide support to groups of students, residents, or faculty with a shared interest on a topic related to health disparity, and we guide them through the process of proposal development and completion of or implementation of the research projects. For example, we have a group of researchers that have interest in the relationship between respiratory conditions and some environmental exposures. And we have a microbiologist working with emergency room physician, a family physician, an epidemiologist, and environmental chemistry. Within the affiliated researcher program, that program was created to provide support to faculty who require assistance in the implementation phase of their projects, especially projects that are going to be done at the hospital UPR in Carolina, where most of our staff is located. We are in the process also of developing some new programs. Especially, we are going to be developing a health services research training program, which aims to increase the opportunities of faculty development for training in health services research. And another new program is the Endowed Health Services Research Training Award, which will provide support to members of our community to participate in training activities related to health services research. Within the research development and infrastructure, the center has been expanding the resource available for the implementation of clinical and translational research. For example, we have been working to expand the resources that are available at the hospital, the UPR hospital in Carolina, which is an excellent setting to conduct primary care research and, of course, health disparities research. We have also been identifying, creating, and supporting the development of new databases that collect local information. And I think we believe that that is really important in order to get a better understanding of the health disparities that are occurring in Puerto Rico. We have continued and will continue providing technical support for investigation initiative projects at the center. And as an example, these are some of the clinical research unit that we have been developing in the Hospital UPR in Carolina. And basically what we are, some facilities that are very limited, but I think that they are very good facilities to provide support to researchers that want to do clinical and translational studies using the setting of that primary care community hospital. Another important initiative for us is the developing of community campus partnerships. And we have been engaging into a model project with the community of Piñones, which is relatively close to here. And basically what we want to do through that community campus partnerships is to provide spaces for in-service learning and impact the community through different types of services and research projects. Right now we are working in a pilot project, multi-level intervention for chronic disease of management in the community that is based in the developing of community health workers, promotores de salud, as a resource to achieve a better management of diabetes and hypertension in that community. So in summary, the Endowed Health Services Center has been offering consulting and technical support to more than 100 research and investigators through these years. The services have included one-to-one mentoring, proposal development, research design, statistical analysis, review of manuscripts for publication. Actually, Mary Helen was part of our staff too. And as a result, there have been many publications in peer review and journals, or and abstract presentations of local, national, and international scientific conference. In addition, we have developed and sponsored several activities and seminars related to training, including workshops in research methodology and development, workshops in scientific writing, by step-by-step model of collaborative evaluation, and seminars and conferences regarding community-based participatory research and health service. What are the future plans of the center? We believe that Puerto Rico is experiencing profound social, economical, and health issues that requires a multidisciplinary response. And we want to be part of that response. I think that each of us at this institution has the opportunity to engage into these collaborations in order to gather more data, in order to gather information about our communities, in order to gather interventions that help us deal with the with these issues that we are dealing. The focus of on the scope of the endowment services research agenda is to enhance the research to eliminate health disparity through the evaluation of the efficacy and effectiveness of health services, assessment of the quality of healthcare provided, improvement of the quality of healthcare within the health system, assessment of the impact of community interventions at the individual level, and the dissemination of the best practices based on research outcome. There is an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And part of the commitment of our endowment is to continue spearheading a research agenda by establishing collaborative alliances with other organizations within the UPR, within the medical sciences campus, with other research centers, and with other higher educational institutions. And I think that this activity is an example of those collaborations. When we talk about health disparity, we talk about our people. And the elimination of health disparities requires local and national leadership to engage in diverse stakeholders for the successful implementations, not just for research projects, not just for some initiatives, but also for the development and implementation of policies and programs that are designed to address those disparities. And I believe that you cannot complete a puzzle if there are missing pieces. We need to make sure that there are not missing pieces in this important endeavor, and we want to make sure that we are not that missing piece. The inclusion and integration of our communities is very important for us, and we believe that is essential for the continued support of the development of these collaborative alliances. And I think that our next steps are going to be defined for what we believe. We believe that health disparities are unacceptable and unfair, and that there are many things that can be done to eliminate those disparities, and we have to accept, that compromise to eliminate those disparities. I think that there is more information needed about the local needs of our communities, and through these types of collaborations and initiatives, we can gather more and better data that can help us not just to understand what are those disparities, but also what we can do for address them. I think that we can make an impact in our communities, and I think that our communities can make an impact in the academia too. So I think that we need to create more spaces of collaborations. We need to move the academia to the communities, we need to move the communities to the academia, and we need to create together, and we need to share our creations with the community and with the scientific community too. And we also believe that we need to care and that we need to share. We are very committed to participate in the elimination of health disparities in Puerto Rico and in other places too, through training, through supporting innovative research, to providing spaces of collaboration, and to working together with our community. And I want to share to you a little bit about some of the experience working with our communities. And for us, it was like putting a face into what we are doing. Working with the communities to learn that we can do things together, and this is a working group of the School of Medicine that works with the community survey in order to identify what were their needs. But it was not done that was not done by us. It was done with them. And this is the group of community leaders, community members, from churches, from associations, from groups, working and discussing with medical students and with faculty what are the best way of dealing with the community. And that's collaboration. That's something that we understand is needed. As a result of that, there have been many activities in their community where there was a need to create two parallel agendas, a research agenda and a service agenda, because our timelines are different. But that makes and allows us the opportunity to get into the community and to gain the trust of this community. And we are working together in both things, in service and research activities with them. So I'm going to just show you some of the activities that we have been done at the schools. I think that we need to go through the elementary school, we need to go to the high schools, we need to start early in the lives of the people. These are other activities that have been done in the community with the participation and collaboration of medical student associations and other groups, faculty, residency program, the pediatric residency program, the family medicine residency program, that have been very supportive of these activities. We have been able to respond to the needs of the communities, and this is an example of something that changed for us. Initially we had interest in working with chronic diseases and diabetes and hypertension, but there were other needs in that community, and we need to change a little bit the focus of what we were doing, because the response to health-related emergencies, especially during the weekends, and the people that have been in Piñera knows that there are some issues, especially with transportation. So we need to change, we need to have the flexibility to change that. And we have been doing different activities, integrating not just the faculty, not just the student, but also other staff of our centers. There was one of our secretaries, who is no longer with us, but she helped us in the activities in the community. Martha is with us. She was doing some play in a church at the community who we were working with. And these are the kids working in studies. This was a study to evaluate school gardens as a way to improve nutritional education at the elementary school, and they did test. They participated in the study, but at the same time they made their school garden, and it was an excellent opportunity to share with professionals. There were pediatricians going there from the residency program, and we evaluated pre and post knowledge and attitudes toward better nutritional behaviors. And this is the last project that we are working in this community. We are, through the process of intervention mapping, working with them. We developed an intervention to address chronic disease self-management. And they decided that working with Lake community health workers was one of the interventions that will work there. So we started working with the training and with the integration of community workers, promotores de salud in this community. And they are some of the two community health workers that are working right now with us, and we are educating them to be leaders and to create local resources that are going to be there, that are going to stay there when the funding for the project is no longer available. So I think that I want to provide a brief overview of what we do. This is our group. We really are very happy to be here, and we are very happy to be collaborating with the organization of this activity. Feel free to contact us, and feel free to visit us at the Hospital Ubea in Carolina and here. We always have food there. If we don't have food, at least we're going to have a cup of coffee. Café siempre hay. So, thank you very much for sharing with us.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. And now you have an idea of to endowment development. I want to welcome Dr. Elias Boneta, that is over there. He's director of the endowment of the School of Dentistry. Welcome. Now I want to call Dr. Inés Garcia because she is going to be the moderator of our next presentation. Our next presentation will run from 10 to 10:45. And you're going to have a break after that of 10:45 to 11, only 15 minutes. If you go to the bathroom or go for a coffee, just to try to be on time. And the lunch time will be half an hour behind. Instead of 12, it's going to be at 12:30. But you're only going to have half an hour. Sorry. Okay, Dr. Garcia. Dr. Mendoza, yo voy a tener, va a sonar 5 minutos antes. La doctora Garcia estará pendiente, y entonces, si termina antes, if you finish first, we're going to have some time for questions. If not, we need to run out, and then we make some questions at the end of all presentations.
It's a great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Fernando Sanchez Mendoza. He's a professor and chief of the Division of General Pediatrics at the Lucille Packard Children's Hospital at Stanford. He has been on the Stanford Medical School faculty since 1981 and Assistant Associate Dean of Minority Advising and Programs since 1983. His research has focused on the health disparities of poor children, particularly U.S. Hispanic children. More recently, his focus has been on immigrant children's health. He served on the Institute of Medicine Committee on the Health and Adjustment on Immigrant Children and Families. He also has worked on workforce diversity for the past 30 years and most recently co-chairs the Federation of Pediatric Organizations Working Group on Diversity and Inclusion. He's on the executive board of the Hispanic Serving Health Professions School, Inc., a consortium of medical and public health schools focused on improving the health of the Hispanic community by improving the health careers pipelines for Hispanic students and increasing the number of Hispanic faculty in the medical and public health schools. At the regional level, he has helped develop two federally qualified health centers and is co-chair of the Vision Council of Kids in Common, a consortium of nonprofit in Silicon Valley devoted to improving the lives and success of children. Most recently, he has led the Stanford School of Medicine leadership in health disparity programs that is focused on developing medical students in future health care leaders. He has been recognized for his accomplishments by a number of organizations, including the American Association of Medical Colleges, Centers for Disease Control, Hispanic Business Magazine, California Latino Medical Association, and Stanford University Medical Alumni Association, which awarded him with the G. Wallace Sterling Muleshoe Alumni Lifetime Achievement Award. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce Dr. Fernando Sanchez.
They usually work with a Mac, so. My daughter, she knows more than I do.
Abajo, there's a line. And then, la tirilla de abajo.
What?
At the bottom. Oh, yeah.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be here. It's wonderful to hear everything you're doing because it really goes to my heart about what we're all about. I don't have any conflicts of interest, except I am a Latino, maybe that's a conflict. So what I'd like to do today is talk about the issue of disparities, multidisciplinary teams, translational teams, and I'm going to give you sort of my impression from my history, from my experiences, of why I think this is important. Why do I think that Latino children are important? Thinking about this not just in the altruism, but what's the economic impact? We've heard about poverty and social determinants. I want to kind of touch upon why that is important and give you some sense of, as we look at this, there are some things that stick out that says that we need to really understand this better. One of those is the issue of the immigrant paradox. Taking all that and then applying it to really re-envisioning what are the causes of health disparities and how do translational teams really affect that. And then lastly, opportunities to ask the right question. And I tell my fellows, you always ask the so what question. So what if you say this? What difference does it make? So first, why are Latinos important? Well, the major reason is there's a lot of us now. And I think this graph shows that the essence they're going to be a lot more. This is a graph of the population of Latinos children. And you see this going up, and you see non-Hispanic whites going down. And in fact, in 2050, there will be 39% of all children in the United States Latino, 38% white. So the average American will be Latino. So what does that mean? What does that future mean? And how are we getting there? Part of how we're getting there is that Latinos, Mexicans, other parts of the Latin America, and Asians are the only groups that are really having positive growth. In fact, from 1990 to the present, 75% of the growth of the child population in the United States has been in these groups that are immigrants and groups that are Latino. And you look at the population of whites and African Americans, they are decreasing in size. So this is a demographic trend that nobody can change. This will continue. And in fact, it will continue as an important thing, not just for Latinos, but I believe for the whole nation. And this graph tells us why. This is the proportion of children since 1900 to the present time. This is the proportion of people over 65, me. And the ideal situation here is that you have more children than people over 65. Why? Because those children grow to be adults. They pay taxes and support us, right?
Supposedly.
That's the future. Now the problem was that in the 1900s, there was 40% versus maybe about 20%, right? So the future now is that we're about 12%, but we're moving to 18%. And the population of children are really falling to about 23, 24%. So this is a situation where the number of children in this country is going to be burdened by the number of people over 65. And in fact, in some countries, Japan, there is 1.5 persons over 65 for every child. We are, and Puerto Rico, are about half that. Now what's the importance of that issue? The importance is, at the end of the day, those children have to be successful. And if they're not successful, they're not good taxpayers. Right? That becomes then, moves us from an altruistic issue about we need to take care of our kids to an economic issue. What made America great? Making money. And I think that this is the real critical issue for us, is how to understand some of these things differently. So that in fact, if all these kids here are, primarily Latino, primarily minorities, we have to be invested in making minority children in this country productive. Not just healthy, but productive. So let's look at where we are. Right now, if you look at the cost of disparities in children, the basic issue about disparities, most of it's linked with poverty, right? The Urban Institute in 2007 said the cost to the United States associated with childhood poverty is about $500 billion per year, or equivalent of 4% of the gross domestic product. Now, the gross domestic product in the United States is about 15 trillion. So let's go a little bit deeper now. So this says that basically when you look at this, the cost of childhood poverty reduces productivity, economic output by 1.3%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about trillions, it's a lot. It raises the cost of crime 1.3%. It raises health expenditures and reduces value of health care by this number. But let's make it more real. In California, 1.4 million children live in poverty. It's estimated that costs $64 billion. That comes out to about, if my math is right, $38,000 per child in poverty. Okay? Let's apply that to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has about almost 1 million kids. In 2013, 56% of those children lived in poverty. That would translate to $19 billion if you took the same math. what could you do with $19 billion? A lot. Particularly if you look at the gross national product, which is 100 million or 100 billion, and the economic situation here is tough, and that many kids ought to be dealing with some of the economics of this area. So I think the question for me is, what's the economic value for children in California, in Puerto Rico, and the nation? Why should we be concerned? Well, I think when we talk about disparities, we've talked about it for 30 years, right? And even before that, if you think about the war on poverty, when I was a youngster, we were talking about disparities. Have we made any progress? I'm not sure. It doesn't look really good. So when we start talking, we need to really think about what exactly are we talking about. If we talk about health as a World Health Organization, then we're talking about the issue of not just not having disease, but being in complete health, mental health, and social well-being, and not just talking about disease and infirmity. So these are differences in these areas, right? And clearly we've actually seen this. The White House study in Great Britain indicated that this is very closely linked with socioeconomic status, and not just a yes or no, but up that line, every person below you in socioeconomic status is worse off than somebody above you. That's pretty remarkable, that it's not just a yes and no, but it's a gradation. Moreover, more recently we're looking at adverse childhood events, ACEs. It was done by a study at Kaiser and continues to be done by the CDC. It shows that, in fact, things in people's lives have long-term effects. So it seems to me that we need to think about children in the sense of things that over time affect them, and how we not just look at poverty or not poverty, but that gradation. The Healthy People I get this because it used to be 2000, 2010, 2020. It hasn't changed. Why hasn't it changed? Because we haven't made progress. But if you look at what they're talking about, disparities. Okay, so they say here, particularly top of healthcare difference that is closely linked with socioeconomic and environmental disadvantage. Systematic experiences with greater obstacles to health based on their race, ethnicity, religion, social class, gender, age, mental health, okay, long list. Now, how do we address that if we need experts in each one of those? It says everything here can impact disparities. So this is a complicated issue. As much as solving cancer, as much as putting somebody on the moon, this is complicated. And if we look at social poverty and social determinants, if we look at 3 kids in California, one of those 3 is going to live in poverty, is going to have bad health. In Puerto Rico, 2. Which one of those kids can we say, you're going to have a terrible life? It's incumbent upon us to think about ways not to let that happen. Now, recently, as I understand, the National Council of La Raza did a survey in Puerto Rico. And here's some of the things they found, and these unfortunately are linked with the poverty issues. They are that the percent of teen agers who are not in school or working is higher than any place else in the United States, 18%. The highest rates of children without secure parental employment, 54%, and children in single parents, 56%. 1/3 of the children did not graduate, 33%, which is more than 24% of the national average. And, as I said earlier, 56%, almost 3 times as many children live in poverty in Puerto Rico. So, the glass half empty, I think it's half full because you have the opportunity here to make a big difference. Now, how is one going to do this? I showed you all those things that went into social determinants. And I think more and more we're realizing that health is all those things. And we have to have models that are much more expansive. The model that the CDC has given us is now that much more expansive. It talks about determinants of health. And it talks about the genes, right? Health behaviors, medical care, and then this issue called ecology or social determinants. And these are the social determinants they always mention. Poverty, low education, race, ethnicity, culture, language, family dysfunction, isms of all sorts, and disenfranchisement. And clearly that is important, but I would want to add one more, which is not the negative side, but the positive side, resiliency. What makes people survive? What makes people really do well, even in the context of poverty? And that's something I don't think that we know. But clearly, this is really a tough issue to solve. And I'm just going to give you sort of a picture of a group that I've been working with, children in immigrant families. These are where one or both parents are born outside of the United States, and they live all over the country, but particularly in California. And these are graphs that basically show some of the social determinants. This is Native children. This is two-parent families, 62%. And then children in immigrant families, 76% have two-parent children. And then you look at Mexico, Central America, all these other groups. I'm just going to focus on Mexicans because that's the largest group that are in this population, and in California clearly. So here we see 76% of all Mexican families have two parents. Yet, when you look at them, parental education, this dark bar here is less than a high school. 50% of all the children live in families where parents have less than a high school. And this is high school. Here is college. And you see some groups have much more because they're coming as professionals. But our population, our Latino population, are not necessarily professionals. They're more working. And in fact, they not only come, but they also bring their culture. 81% of Mexicans don't speak English well. And that's in California. Now, in Los Angeles, it doesn't make a difference because you're in Little Mexico in Los Angeles, right? But in the rest of the countries and the schools, this makes a difference. Poverty levels. Here's the poverty level for natives. This is the dark one here is 15% below the poverty line, 19% 200. Here's Mexicans, 69%. Very impoverished, right? 32% below the poverty line, another 30% plus above, or 200% below the poverty line. So if I just took the Mexican population and looked at them, they would be at high risk. I didn't show you immigrant issues, but immigrant issues certainly add to that. Poverty, low education, limited English. Those would be things that we would say your family's going to have high probability of having poor health. What are some of the buffers, though? What are some of the resiliency issues? Well, two-parent families, multi-generational families, Latinos have a lot of that. And they have the culture identity. How does culture buffer? So what I'd like to do is take the model that we've always had, which is you're poor, you're going to have poor health. Give you an example of a group that's poor, doesn't speak English, doesn't get access to health care, and see what happens with them. This is part of this thing that's called the immigrant paradox. The paradox is that while we should see poor health in particular groups, Mexican Americans, you don't necessarily see that, even though they have the high risk factors. If you look at infant mortality, one of the measures of population health, here is the overall for all races. Here's the Hispanic, which is primarily Mexican. It matches non-Hispanic ones. This is a group without access to health care, pretty much poverty, all the things. The highest rates in this country are from African Americans. Here are the rates for mainland Puerto Ricans and for Puerto Rico. These are the ones I found. Hopefully that's correct. The other one that we always look at is low birth weight. Again, low birth weight for the Mexican Americans should be high because we know that that is a risk factor. And yet when you look at the Hispanic, it's very low. Lower than even white sometimes. Again, mainland Puerto Ricans, and African Americans. Now, if we lump all those groups together, we say minorities, we miss some of this. If we say people in poverty, we miss some of this. So in fact, how we envision health really is going to be really important because then that allows us to think about how we're going to address some of these issues. And not just address the issues as a deficit, but address the issues as a resiliency issue as something that we want to support, right? And if we look at all immigrants, then in fact the blue bars are the native people, and the red bars are the immigrant. And what you see that this phenomenon occurs across all the groups. Now I would argue in this bar here for African Americans that if you look at the African American group from the United States, about 12%. Groups from other countries, 8%. That's almost a 25% decrease in low birth weight. There's no program that we have in this country that decreases low birth weight by 25%. So what is happening in this area? What are the things that makes one group have it and not another group? Based only on the issue that they're new to this country, they're immigrants. Those are the things, those are the kinds of questions we need to start asking. Yet, those kinds of protections don't always stay up. When you look at, sorry for the kind of the slide, but basically it shows that even among those that are new immigrants, there's obesity, there's overweight, but less obesity, but it does go up. It goes up as people stay here more and get exposed to what is American life stream. Let me just say that when I was on the Institute of Medicine Committee on immigrant health, we found the conclusion was American life is bad for your health. Simple conclusion. But we saw it time and time again. Now, one of the things that does happen, though, what's interesting, this is data that I produced a long time ago, but it's been pretty persistent. That is, when I look at first, second, third generations, non-Hispanics, whites, and blacks, the first generation Latinos are the ones, when you look at, do they consider themselves in poor health? Very high. And yet, all the physical measures says that they're not in poor health. So the difference between thinking you're in poor health and being in poor health may have a cultural review on it that may make us think about it differently. But also may ask the question, what do people do when they're in poor health? When they think that their kids in poor health, do they nurture more? Do they do things differently? So again, these are the things that if you don't know to ask, you would never ask and you would never find out. And this may not be an issue that we can bring to bear in a greater involvement as an intervention to prevent poor health. So what are the lessons we can learn from the issues of immigrant paradox? One, I think that simply poverty does not equal poor health, because there are people who are poor that don't necessarily have measures of poor health. Understanding the atypical may be helpful to redefining our models of health. Clearly this is one thing, atypical. But I think it's reshaped our thinking, not just in the deficit model, but perhaps to the human capital model. And we always think about, these people always have problems. What are we going to do with that? We're going to try to make those problems go away? I think we have to ask, what do these people have that are strengths to make them healthy? That's a much easier solution than to try to make these things go away sometimes. The importance, I think, also here of the behaviors and the acculturation or enculturation. And what I mean by enculturation, the culture of the country and say, you're Latino, you're Mexican, or you're Guatemalan, or you're whatever. That does something for that child. It says, this is who I am. When you say you're American, you don't know what the heck that is. How do you become American? Particularly when everybody else says you're not American. So these are the challenges that we have, understanding a population that's very diverse, very dramatically changing. How do we make them healthy? And lastly, as I said, how do we empower the patient, the family, the community to make them resilient? Now, as we think about that in the area of translational medicine, how should we approach it? Well, what is translational medicine? It's the discipline within biomedical public health research that aims to improve health of individuals and communities by translating findings into diagnostic tools, medicine, procedures, policies, and education. Let's take that and apply it to diverse communities. How do we do that? You can't, many of these things are applied to populations where the studies have few Latinos. What's really disheartening for me still, after 30 years in academia, when I ask people, and I asked one person recently, who's applying for my job actually, I asked them, they did a whole study on asthma. And, Puerto Ricans have asthma, right? And I asked the question, did any of the population speak Spanish? He said, no, that was one of the eliminations. They had to speak English. So this was a multi-centered, multi-state, well-funded NIH grant. That, at the end of the day, is Latinos taxpayers were paying for that study. They got nothing out of it. So that's the part that I think we need to make a charge on. You raise the taxpayer issue. What am I getting out of this? Why should I pay for this? Translational teams are important, but I think that they're important because they bring multiple perspectives. Disparities is not just one facet, it has multiple facets. And if we talk about all those things that I talked about, I'm not an expert in 99% of those. So what can I bring? I can bring one expertise, but I need somebody else to give me the expertise to think about it in a way that I can make a difference. How do you put multidisciplinary teams together? Well, you have to ask the question, right? You have to ask the right question and then be very humble and say, well, I'm not an expert. How do I bring that? Even if it's, how do I know about what does that neighborhood have? What expert can I bring in? And when you bring an expert, you put the pieces together, you have something that really makes the difference. And if we think about this, then we go back to this model, then clearly those of us in the health professions will get access to these kinds of experts, right? Experts that can deal with the gene and biology, health professions, and or the health behaviors in medical care. And they may be in medicine, basic science, public health, psychology, economics, health services, more and more informatics. I have colleagues in informatics, and they're taking off like gangbusters or publishing papers once a week, not once a year, but once a week, because there's so much data. And then technology, Silicon Valley, right? I have one of my faculty is doing apps, and they're working with Silicon Valley folks to how do we make apps that change people's behaviors. I mean, there's all that, right? But at the end of the day, there's still an academia. How do we affect the real world? So we need to understand this environment that we call the ecology. And it may take people, not just in public health and sociology, but anthropology, history, political science, arts and media. How do you change somebody's ideas? Well, sometimes a picture or a play can make 1,000 words. And we try to convince people the arts may do that. Law, urban education. This just says to us that there are ways to do this that are much more effective, but there are ways that have to bring other people in. To give you some examples, Reach Out and Read, a program nationally, you have it here, was a combination between education and medicine, saying, let's look at kids' literacy very early, and let's see how we can make a change in that. And that's been very effective. Medical Legal Partnership, started by Barry Zuckerman in Boston. Our patients have lots of legal issues. How do we deal with that? Should we just say, well, I can't deal with it? No, we can say, let's bring a lawyer in. Let's talk about how we can deal with that and make a big influence. One of the things that you may have seen recently is Mexico has passed a tax on sodas. That developed not just for medicine and public health, but law and policy people that really got together and said, we're going to make a difference. So this just says to us that indeed, if you want to make an impact on health disparities, you have to have this multifaceted approach. And I think then the components of the translational team, as we think about that, needs to have some of these, if not all. Clearly, we need to have the theoretical. We need to have the academics that take us from the literature to best practices. We need to have applied understanding of how to make things work. It's nice to have the academics and read the literature, but if you haven't been out in the real world, it's going to be hard to say X will work and Y. I think we're now with the big data, it's really an opportunity to take advantage of some of the things that we have in terms of big data. The electronic medical record, for example, will give us a chance to monitor BMIs, blood pressure, asthma, frequencies of many, many things. But unless we put the right questions in there, for example, for us, it's just putting the question is, what's the ethnic background of the patient? Do they speak Spanish? What languages do they speak? Right? Those two things are not asked of most of the EMRs in this country. Yet I just showed you the population change. So some of those things we can really push for to make big data effective. There's going to be so much data available. The question is, how much of that is going to apply to Latinos? Child and family, I think it's always good to be an academic, but if you never talk to the people you're trying to make a change for, then you're likely to lose. And this is where I think more and more people are bringing in families. We have, for example, in our ward service, family-centered routes. So the healthcare system is changing. Our academics need to change a similar way. And then the idea of community partnerships, and not just to get the community involved, but the sustainability of anything that has community effect has to be sustained by the community. We can't be there all the time. So the idea of having sustainability, which is critical to any of these things, has to have community input. And lastly, I think there has to be somebody that drives it. And it may not be a person with degrees. It has to be somebody that brings these people, different backgrounds, different ideas, different turfs together and makes them work together. So let me give you a couple examples. First, one of the things that clearly is an issue still for us, even though in the last few days the issue of obesity, they said, well, we're getting better. But they didn't tell you what groups are getting better. And the Latinos and the African Americans are the most obese. There wasn't any mention about whether there's any change in that. If you have money and access to good foods, access to parks, access to anything you want, right? Trainers, you can lose weight. But if you don't, then you may not. So here what you see are those states that have high rates of obesity. And we are both in one of those areas. I'm in California and in Puerto Rico. So obesity continues to be a problem. What's the intervention to get that to improve? Well, I think clearly it's not just medicine. It's not getting the endocrinologists to come by and do bloods to see if they're at risk for diabetes or nutrition. It's really getting the public health people involved to think about how do we change communities? How do we impact a neighborhood? They get the schools involved. Where does kids spend most of their time? Most of the schools in California don't have PE. They sit like us right now, and you try to learn, and they have no physical activity. And if you try to join a sports club, you have to pay. So, we make it so difficult for people to have activities. In some parts of our communities and in my area, it's so unsafe, particularly in Portland, that mothers and parents won't let their kids out. So they're staying in front of the television. It is also important that families recognize that obesity is a problem. I think as a clinician, I always feel that, when I tell mom your child's obese, they look at me, you don't know what you're talking about. So I think at the end of the day, it becomes really important for us to try to find a way to do that better. And to get government to really be part of this solution. One of my colleagues, who's nationally known for his work in obesity, Tom Robinson, talks about stealth interventions. And what that is basically doing an intervention where the person doesn't know that you're doing it. It's not unethical. It's just saying the following, for example. He's got a soccer league in our community in East Palo Alto, which is mostly minority, that is for obese adolescents. You can't get into that league unless you're obese. Because, as you recall, if you were days in high school, if you weren't the one that looked like you do, that you can kick the ball and run fast, you weren't picked. So this is a way to engage children, to bring up their self-esteem, and actually have the Stanford soccer players come and work with them. So it's a big deal for them. They also teach them, they do the math and reading with them, and they get the families involved. So this has been a stealth thing. They've lost weight. They've less time with the issues of television, etc. But the kids don't see it as a weight loss. They see it as a fun thing to do, soccer. There's another program he asked. It's called here. I don't know that he knows what that means, but he put it there. This is the idea of folk dancing for girls. And, one of the things that Latinos have is, where do I belong? What's the style I should have, et cetera, et cetera. And what he did was basically say, well, let's do something cultural that strengthens not just their physical activity, but their cultural awareness, their self-esteem, their ideas about themselves, right? And at the same time, let's bring the families in, let's bring the community in, let's do this all together. Now, both these studies are NIH R1s, and he's just gotten like 10 years of R1 funding. And the reason for that is the way he does this. He's at the head of the curve. He's understood that the idea here is not about just science. It's about what difference do you make? What's the so? How do you make a change? And how you make a change is bringing the people in, understanding that you don't say, "Here, I want you to do this," but you say, "How do we do this together? How do we make your life change?" You have to understand what the person's life is about before you can make a change. The thing that I'm most concerned about, and I've been a minister for a long time, but I want to go back into the research, is that indeed in California, Latino children are not succeeding. Half of all the children in California being born are Latino. A third of all kids in Silicon Valley, the wealthiest, most innovative place in the world, are Latino. Only 60, maybe 70% graduate from high school, and only maybe 20% of that group go on to college. Here's data that basically shows that from that group of immigrant kids, the kids that our parents are immigrants, probably 50% have less than a high school education. Now, what difference does that make? Well, they just go out and work, right? Well, here's the problem. Here's California's vision for employment. Here's the population, and here's the amount of jobs. So less than a high school, about half the number of jobs that one can have. And high school, college, etc. So basically it says California's technology is going off the boards. If you want to be part of that future, you have to have science, math, you have to be able to do that. If you can't read, don't have any math background, you're going to be doing not that, right? You're going to be doing these poor jobs, minimal wage, insurance, hopefully, but you're going to be left behind. Now, to me, that's a terrible thing to say where half the kids in California are Latino. That's the human capital we're throwing away. So we really need to do something different. And one of those things, as I said earlier, was reach on a read. Let's get to them early. I was talking about pediatricians. We're the only social institution that gets to kids in the first 3 years of life. Schools, 3 to 4. But pediatricians are there for the first 3 years of life. Are we doing everything that we can? Reach on and read is one of those things. Hand a book and say, you can teach your child. Empower the mother, empower the parent to teach their children. Make them love to learn. Make them love to read. So, this area brought pediatric child development, public health, maternal child health, schools and libraries, daycare centers, families and communities, policies, policymaker, advocate, government. Everybody got together and said, we're going to do this. Now, where does this stand right now? Well, it's getting there, but not really as strongly as it should be. And we recently did a study statewide of California. We found the ones that aren't being touched by this, in the sense that we call it book sharing, are Latinos, are immigrants, are people that here, as you see, these are the odd ratios. So if you have one foreign parent, you're less likely, 80%, 2 foreign parents, 60%, African Americans, 50%, Hispanics, same. If you just take the English spoken in the home, if you speak English in the home, it goes up. Interesting, huh? Less than high school, household incomes, you know. What this just tells me is that there's a lot of work for me to do in California to make a difference. And what difference can this make? So, it can make a difference because I can go talk to folks, as was mentioned, I'm co-chair of the Kids in Common, which is a nonprofit group of all the nonprofits in Santa Clara County. Now we're talking about nonprofits that have money. Santa Clara County has 600 1,000 millionaires, right? If you own a house, you're a millionaire because that's the expense. But you also have all this other goodwill. And we're very lucky because we have that kind of resource. The question is, can we apply it in a way that makes a difference? And what they've done is basically said, like, unlike any other community in California, they said, you know, all the kids in our area are our kids. No matter what color they are, what language, what religion, they're our kids. And this is called the Bill of Rights for Children and Youth. This was it was accepted and codified by each of the boards of supervisors of both of our counties, Santa Clara, San Mateo. And basically goes through sort of listing that we want to make every child successful, every child achieve their full potential. So for me, I have the backing, right? The question is, what am I going to do with that? What can I do with that? And I think what I can do with that is start to talk with people and say, look, we know the good science, the neuroscience tell us that early development is important. I know that half the kids in California are Latino. I know they're not doing so well right now. And I know the future of California, of any state, cannot have such a loss of its human capital. So let's work together. Let's do something that we can make a difference. Let's answer that so what question. The so what is, let's make a difference for kids. And here it's the issue of the best science, the neuroscience development educational policy, engaging the experts, empowering the community, and then getting people that have the money to say, this is important because of this. And therefore, as a dean that I've seen this sort of many, many years of students that come in, you know, or people that we try to recruit, you have to be able to envision what's the future. That future is really what we can make of it. And when I look at kids, and I look at this little girl here, right? And I ask any of these kids, well, what's their future? What are they going to be? I think some of those kids are going to be graduates, they're going to be the doctors, they're going to be the people that are in this conference today. But only if we can affect what's happening to their lives. So, but I would say health disparities now is as important as any national security issue for us. It is, at the end of the day, the future of the United States in a global economy. In all the things that we're trying to make out of this nation, that for the first time is not one color, it's not one religion, it's not one thought. That's the future. And I think that people like yourselves, with conferences like this, can start helping us think about how we do this. And I think part of it will be the money, but part of it will be your alma. It keeps you going because you know it's right, right? And those kids that you tend to see, those kids, you see them all the time. I see them when they come into my clinic. And I look at their faces and I say, hey, that looks like my little brother used to look like, who's now a DA in Santa Clara County. Or that's, you know, we all have those stories, right? Those look like the kids that we used to be. So I think that what you can do today really will initiate that kind of thinking. And if we can bring our students in, then that, in the final analysis, will be the best thing we can do. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I have to say that I have never seen it from that perspective. You know, I know that it's important to take care of children, but really it's the future, like you say. I mean, I loved your conference. Thank you. I think it puts into right. Well, we have a lot of pediatricians here. Go on.
No, I just had we had a scholar last night presenting about violence. And I saw a lot of issues, but I don't see it. And here in Puerto Rico, as we saw last night with our scholar, Dr. Linda Laras, how important it is and how it's not taken care of. And that's a whole new level. Have you?
Yeah, one of the very fascinating experiences I had was, as part of this Kids in Commons, we have one conference a year. Two experiences. The first I'll tell you about is that I went to a panel, and it was a panel about kids at risk. And there was a person talking about the parenting classes that person did. That person was the DA. The DA was saying, these risk families, I bring them in, we spend time talking about how to be better parents. And I tell them, every day you tell your child that you love them. You give them a little note that you love them. And he said, I told them to go, and they came back. And when they came back, everybody was in tears because of the stories. How impactful it was for one word to be said one day, and how much difference that made to those kids. Now, on the other side is that last year we gave an award for a school, because the school has really changed its policy on discipline. That policy 1 year prior, there were 1,200 kids in that school. And if you said something back to the teacher, you get expelled for a day. 700 kids were expelled. 700 out of the 1,200. So what they did, they rethought, well, maybe that's not what we should be doing. And what they ended up doing is bringing it down to 70. So we gave them a reward.
And
So
what did they do to discipline them?
Yeah, I mean, it was if you were disrespectful to the teacher.
No, but how do they change it?
What they did, they made it much more difficult to expel. But they didn't put it just in the teacher's hands, but they put it in more broader. So, to me, I think, when I look at the kids in East Palo Alto as a port school, and I think how many kids have gone through there, come out, and can't read, can't write. It's not that, well, that's them. It's that those are the kids that are going to support us. Those are the kids that go off to fight. The reason I got into pediatrics, because in the Vietnam War, I saw a lot of Latinos going off, coming back, and still being in the same situation. No care, no health insurance, poor school. So I thought, well, this is something that needs to be done. We need to make things better for Latinos. So at the end of the day, I think, this contract that citizens have with the government, have with us, needs to be fulfilled some way. And I think how we fulfill it is by saying, we care about your kids.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you. I think you were very insightful, but insight-provoking. I think we really need to apply those same measures. And policymakers here need to understand that. They're pivotal. And Puerto Rico is going as tough a situation as you described, and we really need to take action now, because the future is coming in very fast for us. Thank you.
And in terms of partnerships, I think, this is, you have more insights too about Latinos. We were talking about, in California, a lot of mental health issues. We have very few, if any, mental health workers that can speak Spanish. 50% of all the kids Latino, 5% of the pediatricians Latino. And as part of my focal activities, I looked at the whole departments of pediatrics in all the nation, the whole nation. We're about 5 or 8% in those departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. It was a wonderful presentation. We're going to have now the 15-minute break. You're going to see the timer on the screen, and we're going to start at 11 with Dr. Gabriel's presentation. Thank you.